Lincoln Riley had a lot of success at Oklahoma. He won Big 12 championships. He won coaching awards. His quarterbacks have won Heismans. But his Sooners always seem to fall a little short in the playoff, compiling an 0-3 record. His teams are always dangerous offensively. And the missing ingredient seemed to be a defense that just wasn't good enough to help them advance. Now fast forward to year one at USC, and his team has a very familiar identity to that of his old OU teams. Flashy offense, a QB that is elite and an absolute witch. And the biggest question still remains, is the defense good enough to make some real noise at the end? Now, while they feasted on turnovers like I did at deep fried turkey last week, I don't believe this is the year that Riley's going to hold up the big trophy. But it's coming. Now, we all know OU can get talented players, but being in SoCal compared to Norman, in a state that's bigger than a lot of countries, isn't a fair fight, and it's not on equal footing. If Riley can get the in-state talent to stay there instead of going to the Southeast, while utilizing USC as a national brand, because it is, the defense can not only improve, it can become dominant. We've seen this movie before. Now, he's off to a hell of a start. And now that USC seems to be back into the spotlight, their chances of thriving only increase by the day. USC, Utah. Big game tonight, the biggest one on. Look, that's no disrespect to UTSA or North Texas, but let's look in the mirror and be honest for a second. But when you look at Lincoln Riley, and everybody, I think the quick take and the easy thing to jump to is, oh, well, this USC team is just like every team at Oklahoma. We watched him have unbelievable skill players. Like I mentioned, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. I can go down the list of amazing quarterbacks and skill position players that have been at Oklahoma. But every time they got to the playoff, they couldn't stop anybody, and that's what cost them. But I feel like, David, it's a different animal at USC than it is at Oklahoma. And I do not mean that disrespectfully to Oklahoma. It's like that at 99.9% of the other places compared to SoCal, where he is at, in a state that, while I disagree with the way they do things, are they a little bit soft in some places? Yes. There's really good football out in California. There's really good football players that play tough, that are physical. I think of places like Bakersfield and places like that. I believe that Lincoln Riley will win a national championship at USC.
I think so,
It
too.
may be one, it may only be one, but I think he will win one. I think especially now that it's going to 12, they're going to be a staple of the playoff. And that defense, keeping that in-state talent there, can not only create a talented first 11 on defense, but depth, your first 22, your first 30. I think he can actually do it.
11-1 right now, year one, and we know how many problems that defense had. Look,
roster had, David, not just defense.
that is
the
true.
roster.
That is true, and a lot of that he brought in from the portal. A lot of that help bringing it in from Oklahoma. And I don't think it's him. I don't think it's crazy to say he would have gotten one in Oklahoma. You know, I mean, I think his chances are better in Southern California for sure. But let's just break down the facts here. He's never going to stop recruiting the best quarterback in the nation. 2 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks back-to-back in Baker Mayfield and in Kyler Murray. He may add another one here in just 2 weeks with Caleb Williams. Your only loss right now is 1 point on the road at Utah. You're about to have an opportunity tonight to avenge that. He's going to be able to get better defensive players. I've already talked about the SC teams that I had to go up against with Brian Cushion. When you had Troy Polamalu, there's no question you can get the best defensive talent out there. I really think SC could be the West Coast version of what Dabo Swinney has done with Clemson. You know, not having to go through necessarily the SEC or the Big Ten slate every single week, right? And to be able to have, it'll be like the inverse, what Dabo Swinney was able to do on the defensive side of the ball out there. Well, I think Lincoln Riley can have this explosive offense, get a defense that's strong enough to be able to compete in the postseason. And we're going to find out a lot more tonight.
Yeah, I think at Oklahoma, it would have had to been a almost the perfect storm for him to win one. I think you'd have had to have the you always need to catch breaks. That's not what I'm saying. But the perfect ingredients to be able
The rest of the country be down a little bit.
The rest of the country being a little bit down.
I know what you mean.
You know, and I think at USC, he can just be better than everybody for a couple years. I really believe that. And again, you may say, all right, Jake, well, you grew up in the USC dominant Pete Carroll, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Mike Williams, Lindell White, all these guys. Yes, but I've seen that monster built before. And there's something a little bit different when you look at USC as a college football fan. To me, growing up in the era that I did, I know what they could be. So I think some of the younger generation forgets what USC used to be. They forget what Alabama used to be. You got to realize it's cyclical, and there are places, the dominant places and the top tier places we could go from West Coast to East Coast, from North border to Southern border, those brands really don't ever die. They may go dormant for a little bit. That's why it's so sad to see what's happened with Nebraska. Then on the other hand, it's really nice to see what's happened with Tennessee and some of these resurgent programs that we're seeing now kind of come back from the dead a little bit that are big time brands. So Blaine, when you look at USC and Lincoln Riley, do you think they will win a national championship while he's there?
I do. I mean,
I think he'll win multiple?
I definitely think he'll win one. I definitely think he'll win one. Does Lincoln ever want to go to the NFL, you think? I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't really know that with Lincoln yet. But the thing about USC is it sells. USC, I mean, what's the closest thing in the college? What is it, Bama? That sells more than USC. USC's a sexy place to go. One, it's in California, and I know California's kind of fallen off lately. But, you know, the NIL rules and stuff out there are a little bit different. And two, Lincoln Riley can not only recruit, and one way Lincoln recruits is by his offensive scheme, which has to be so fun to play for. If you're an offensive player,
and
receiver, running back, quarterback. Most of quarterbacks lately, especially the really good ones, have been coming out of where?
California.
In one area,
have been
played against each other
out of California, and they will also. Lincoln will run the transfer portal if they keep playing like this, running it up on offense like this, because guys want to play together when at that certain level. That elite level. You saw Addison go. You saw Caleb Williams go. This is going to keep being a funnel to USC, and USC could slowly turn into the most dangerous team on the come up in college football. Especially if Saban goes, you know, Kirby will still be up there, but there's going to be a slot up there for another team to sit up there with Georgia, and I would not be surprised if it's USC.
Let's go to the Booster Club.
Wait, go ahead. No. What's up, Dave? What's up, Dave?
I just wanted to finish one more thought on USC.
You finish.
You finish.
Because I've always said, who doesn't want, which 18-year-old to 22-year-old kid doesn't want to go to Southern California with a school with a pedigree like Southern California, win Heisman trophies, win national championships? I was thinking we could see a version here in a couple years with a USC team sort of like that 2019 LSU team. You get a quarterback transfer in, or possibly just Lincoln just recruits them outright. A transfer in sort of like Joe Burrow was with that 2019 team. And then a few years later, we're looking back and pointing at the USC team saying, they had all those guys?
Well,
like we're looking at Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Joe Burrow.
Could we see that next year?
Possibly, because I think Caleb's got to come back. That could be the guy with the other weapons around
receivers will flock to play with Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Flock, like Blaine said, great players want to stay together. Birds of a feather fly together. I think Gordon Bombay said that. Hey, everybody, appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you subscribe, right? It's just the right thing to do. Like walking old ladies across the street, tipping waitresses well, and screaming at the TV when nobody else is in the room.